Neptune. Neptune is probably the most difficult planetary energy to understand. Its nature eludes definition because it is associated with aspects of the universe that are unclear, illusory, delusory, ill-defined, and even imaginary. But Neptune can be understood in part by defining what it is not. Even more than Uranus, it is an energy that negates everything that Saturn stands for. If Saturn is reality, Neptune is non-reality. If Saturn is an aspect of the ego, Neptune is denial of the ego. If Saturn is our notion of time and space, Neptune is outside time and space, in either a non-dimensioned or an infinitely dimensioned universe. Neptune symbolizes the truth and divinity perceived by mystics. At the highest level, Neptune represents nirvana, where all individuality is merged into an infinite oneness of being and consciousness. The planet is probably misnamed from an astrological point of view, since it has little similarity to the boisterous Roman sea deity. It is more like the Hindu goddess Maya, who is really a philosophical principle. Like the planet Neptune, Maya is both illusion and the way through illusion to absolute truth. Unlike Maya, however, Neptune has little to do with the physical universe. Its illusions usually involve a departure from the physical universe's commonly accepted rules. As we have seen, the idea that the reality of the physical universe is also the truth comes from Saturn, not Neptune. Thus, Maya in the philosophical sense is represented in its different aspects by both these planets. Neptune energies are extremely hard for most people to deal with, simply because to be successful in the mundane universe, one must be able to deal effectively with Saturn. And it is hard to deal effectively with both planets at once. Saturn represents the apparent reality of reality, giving what we call reality the appearance of truth. The universe of Neptune is one of unlimited possibilities, in which there are no rules except for those treated arbitrarily at certain points in time and space, so that the divine dance we call reality can take place. To be able to handle Neptune and Saturn at once is difficult. One must be able to play the game of reality completely and with total conviction, exactly as if it were the real thing in the ultimate sense, while at the same time knowing in one's heart that it is not. One must be able to live in the universe of Saturn, being responsible and aware of its laws, while at the same time not requiring it for support. The addiction to structure that we refer to under Saturn is not permissible with Neptune. This is why Neptune is an ego-denying energy. In the presence of Neptune, the illusion of the ego becomes clear. The illusion is not so much the awareness of having an ego as it is of being an ego. On a low level, Neptune represents experiences that becloud the ego, which, in order to function, needs a sense of secure ultimate reality. Thus, Neptune symbolizes illusion, mystery, confusion, and crisis, in which one's ego is severely defeated. Neptune may also signify both an ideal and an illusion of the perfectly ideal. Though Saturn has an ideal of perfection, Neptune's ideal transcends physical reality. Neptune's ideal of perfection is positive when it is hailed as something to strive for, but illusory when it is believed already to be true on this plane. When one is relatively at ease with Neptune, higher manifestations come forth. The awareness Neptune gives that the ego is not ultimately what one is, grants us the ability to sacrifice ourselves for that in which we believe, for higher causes of truth. The catch here is that if we really understand Neptune, we realize that what we are likely to sacrifice ourselves for is as much an illusion as our own ego. It is the awareness of the game that is important in such a case. Simply as a kind of statement about what one may be in the course of playing a divine game, one may, in the full awareness of its ultimate unreality, choose to sacrifice heavily for that in which one believes. Or one may sacrifice oneself while not knowing this, and waste one's life for nothing. The difference between a high martyr and the simple victim is hard to establish. Both are Neptunian. Unfortunately, Neptune may indicate severe ego weakness in people who really do have to deal with the physical universe in order to play the game of life. In such cases, Neptune gives rise to covert or dishonest actions, to people who act behind the scenes because they do not have the strength to confront life directly. Poisoning, often called the weapon of the weak, is Neptunian. Many Neptunian people have a severe lack of confidence in themselves. The most desperate will attempt to withdraw from life into drugs or alcohol or even insanity. Although all of these difficulties require a considerable contribution from other planets such as Pluto and Saturn. Some who have a relatively weak ego structure due to Neptune manifest the positive characteristics as well. Because they are not so bound up in the definite structured world that comes with a strong ego, they may be more sensitive to energies that others have ruled out of order in their systems of reality. Neptune is therefore connected with psychic people of all kinds. Neptune can be a great source of difficulty in relationships. This is because relationships require a clear idea of what one is, a clearly defined ego. When Neptune affects relationships, there is not only a lack of clarity about what the other person may be, by himself or herself, but also no clarity about which aspects of the relationship are really the other person and which are actually oneself. Neptunian people are prone to create projections in which there is no correspondence between the energy projected upon the other person and what that person may really be. All relationships are to some extent based on projection, but with Neptune, the fit between the projection and the person may be very poor indeed. As with every other planet, there are times when Neptune manifests creatively and times when it is inappropriate. Neptune energy best comes when one has learned something to play the game of life, at a time when the structure one has created threatens to take away the sense of aliveness. Its peculiar kind of enlightenment is best left to those who are relatively advanced in years or who have otherwise gained wisdom and maturity. But many try to go into a Neptunian state too soon, usually because of the kind of ego weakness that we have already mentioned. Many young people involve in spiritual movements, not because they have mastered the game of life and are ready to leave it, but because they are either afraid of life or disgusted by it, without really understanding it. The question here is one of motivation. Why does one choose to leave the ordinary world? The individual's answer to this will determine whether or not the spiritual quest is appropriate. For many, it is perfectly proper to retire from the routine of ordinary living to a contemplative spiritual life in the ashram or monastery. Such people understand at a very early age that of various realities, the one that a given society creates with its laws, customs, and expectations for its members, is one of the most illusory. It is a radical idea for many to realize that it is not always or even usually good for everyone to follow the spiritual path. We are here to do what must be done, and this requires an ego. Neptune can be quite damaging in this way. Along with Venus, Neptune signifies artistic creativity. Whereas Venus represents the physical aspect of creation, Neptune is the inspiration that must take place before anything can be brought into the physical world. A creative person with a strong Venus but little Neptune is more craftsman than artist. Such people will have elegant taste and design sense, but little imagination. Imagination being one of the most important benefits of Neptune. By the same token, an individual who has much Neptune but little Venus will be able to conceive creative ideas but not be so good at bringing them into physical reality. Those arts that are the most abstract are the most Neptunian, such as music and poetry. Painting and sculpture require a good deal of Venus because of the physical nature of the creation. In the scheme of planets presented here, Neptune is the next stage beyond Uranus in the encounter with the transcendent aspect of existence. If Saturn represents normal reality and the consciousness that deals with that reality, and Uranus represents those energies that break through normal reality so its structures cannot become too deadening, then Neptune represents the total negation of all the principles of normal reality. Neptune is often described as illusion, while Saturn is said to represent truth. The relation is actually the reverse. Saturn is the illusion that there is a reality that is truth. Neptune is the truth that there isn't. In some respects, Neptune is more truly chaotic than Uranus, in that Neptune can be the formless void before any structure is imposed upon it. Yet, on closer examination, we could say that Neptune symbolizes the universe in which all truth is simultaneously true, even the contradictions. I have said we create Saturnian reality by process of elimination and exclusion. The selection is made from the overwhelming array of realities symbolized by Neptune. In the manifestations in ordinary life, Neptune can represent either illusion or mystical illumination, depending on one's level of spiritual evolution. For this reason, Neptune can represent the highest and lowest aspects of human experience, the most beautiful and painful of human emotions. The task of mastering Neptune's energies is one of the most difficult, and very few do it completely. I suspect this is because to master the energy that Neptune represents requires being able to accept all its truth at once. To do this means that one cannot perform the acts of exclusion and selection that are required in order to create, that is, to incarnate into a physical universe under Saturn. If one really masters Neptune, one probably does not incarnate into this world. The mere fact of such incarnation suggests that Neptune has not been mastered and probably will not be in this lifetime, except for the occasional bodhisattva who incarnates totally realized for the sake of guiding others to the truth. We should not be sorry about this. We should simply go about doing what it is to be done, and learning what is to be learned. It is important to learn that all the energy that comes with being alive has its origins in the universe of Neptune, and that if we cut ourselves off from Neptunian energy with walls of Saturn, we ultimately cut ourselves off from life. Uranus makes the break in what armors us against the ultimately real, while Neptune gives a glimpse of the ultimately real itself. Commentary. I skipped the commentary on Uranus.